Hi, and welcome to this information Vimeo for the Science and Technology Internship subject. In this session, I'll be providing an overview of what the subject is, what it isn't, why it's important, and what it aims to help you achieve. I'll then explain the mechanics of enrolling in the subject, as it's quite a bit different to most of the subjects you've undertaken in the past, and this can be a bit confusing. It also runs differently to most subjects, and we'll touch on that too. Finally, I'll direct you to further resources that may help if you want to pursue this subject next semester or maybe sometime else into the future. So before I begin, I suppose I really should introduce myself. My name's Janet Hurt and I'm the subject coordinator. I'm your point of contact for any academic questions or concerns and will be the key resource for you during the subject. Fiona Simpson is a highly experienced careers and industry consultant in the Faculty of Science. She assists with all of the legal agreements and maintains the relationships between the university and external organisations. She also works closely with the Careers Centre to provide additional support for this subject. So what is this subject about? Well, the main aim is to help you explore a career that you think you might aspire to have once you graduate. What is it really like day to day? Is it what you imagined it to be? And is it for you? How does the scientific knowledge that you now have and the skills that you've learned at university translate into the workplace? And that includes skills you may not even realise you have, like your way of thinking and your approach to solving problems. The placement itself needs to be a genuine work placement and needs to involve some aspect of science and technology. Now clearly, if you aspire to have a career as a surgeon, your internship in a hospital is not going to see you in the operating theatre wielding a scalpel. Well, at least we hope not. Still, it needs to ensure that you interact with and work alongside those people that do, so you can properly explore what such a career involves. And just because you won't be allowed to operate on people, this doesn't mean your placement should be reduced to photocopying things and making cups of tea for your boss. I'll run through some of the kinds of activities interns have been involved in over the past few years later to give you an idea of what you might do. Now, importantly, before you commence your placement, you'll need to complete a series of online modules and exercises. At the end of this, you'll produce a document that you take into the workplace so you can seek out particular opportunities to work on areas you identify that you benefit from, and you get to monitor your progress. At the very end of the subject, you should have a greater confidence in yourself, competence in particular skills, and hopefully a clearer idea of what you are looking for in a career and how best to pursue it. I guess just as importantly is what this subject is not. It is not simply a research project, and I need to explain what I mean here, as your placement may well be in a research lab or organisation if you're interested in exploring whether a career as a researcher is for you. So the work that you undertake may well be the same as what you do for a research project, but the focus of the subject will not be on the project itself. So instead of assessing how you framed your hypothesis, designed the experimentation required to test it, interpreted the results and wrote up the final report, the assessment in this subject will focus on what it's like to be a researcher, what are the pros and cons of this kind of career, what attributes do researchers need to excel in this area, and is all of this really something that you're well suited to and that you'd be keen to have as your career? You might also observe what other roles there are in the organisation, laboratory support staff for example. Are there other careers in the organisation that they might have but in a different role? My estimate is that around a third to a half of students taking this subject change their minds about the kind of career they're interested in. And if you do, what alternatives there are is an important question to have thought about. In fact, while I'm on this topic, this change in mind has been life-changing for some students, quite literally. For example, we've seen students who thought they'd undertake further studies and even go on to a PhD that find a completely different passion. We've also seen the opposite, some who wanted to get straight out into the workforce and have been inspired to pursue further studies that lead to a different pathway that they hadn't even thought about before their placement. Anyway, back to the slide here. The second thing that this subject is not, it is not a paid placement. Now, by all means, seek out work experience during vacation time if an income is what you're after. You'll be receiving credit towards your degree for this subject, and in many cases, hosting you will actually cost the organisation, as they'll need to provide you with a supervisor and some level of training. So who and when can undertake this subject? The subject is available as an elective in the undergraduate BSc and Biomed degrees, and within many streams of the Master of Science and Master of Environment. It's also available in other programs such as the Master of Geoscience, the Master of Environmental Science, and a graduate certificate called Professional Skills for Scientists. So you may well want to look at whatever course you're in or thinking of undertaking and see if it's an elective in that program. Okay, so now to the critical part. Hopefully I've convinced you that it's a terrific opportunity for you to explore your future career, and you're in a course that allows this as an elective. Well, many of you may have this kind of image in your head when it comes to the process from here. Enrol, undertake your placement, and hopefully that will give you all of the experience you need for your CV to land a brilliant job. Well, it's just a little bit more complicated than that. So essentially you are here at the information session. If you're keen to pursue this subject after listening to this presentation, you'll need to complete an expression of interest, which we have available online, and I'll show you where and how to access this in a moment. Once we have your details, we can let you know when workshops will be held that will help you figure out what kind of work you might be interested in undertaking, which organisations conduct this kind of work that might place you, and then how to go about securing your placement. These workshops are conducted by Fiona with expert support from the Careers Centre. You'll learn a number of important things about CV writing, interview techniques and so on, and you'll discover a range of amazing resources that are available to help you. So even if you don't continue on to take the subject, these will better prepare you to find jobs to apply for when you graduate. Anyway, once you've found an organisation willing to place you, you need to complete an online application form. This needs to happen by a specific deadline for each semester, and these deadlines are indicated on the website that we'll look at shortly. It's at this point that a considerable amount of work behind the scenes takes place. Fiona extracts the information you've submitted and gets it to me. I check each application and either approve it or request further information. Once I've approved it, Fiona sorts out the legal agreements. All you need to know about this is that you don't need to do anything, which is pretty good. The legal agreement is between the university and your organisation. Fiona will contact you to complete one document, but once you complete your application form, you don't need to do anything else until you hear from us. Finally, once we have all of the legal matters signed off, then you will be contacted and told you can enrol, and then you can commence the subject. So the subject itself starts with the pre-placement classes as we've mentioned before, followed by your internship, and of course the various pieces of assessment and final wrap-up sessions throughout the semester. Now for the summer semester there are no face-to-face classes, and this is because students normally work full-time during summer, starting and ending at different times during January and February, so it's just not possible to get everyone together. In semesters 1 and 2 we have 3 2-hour classes scheduled, so students can share their experiences and discuss strategies for maximising the benefit of their placement with each other. So all the arrows here on the right hand side are really just to reassure you that we'll work alongside you in this long process, and they're also there to emphasise that you need to make a commitment to this process if you want to enrol in the subject. Note in particular the arrow that's all red. Even if you've submitted an expression of interest, we won't chase you around the deadline to see if you're still planning to submit an application. We'll simply assume you've changed your mind if you don't contact us. So why is this process all so long and drawn out? Well, first, although we're here to help you, it's important that you learn how to go about the task of finding a job, as this is exactly what you'll need to do when you graduate. By going through this process with our help, you'll be in a stronger position than undergraduates because you'll have had first-hand experience with the steps you need to undertake. Also, getting some organisations to sign off on the legal agreements can take weeks, even months. This is because many have concerns about intellectual property issues, confidentiality, and so on. Some organisations may require you to undergo a police check or a clearance for you to work with children. We've even had a case in which a student needed to have a range of inoculations before the organisation would approve her placement. So it's a bit like the simple diagram we saw earlier, but with rather more work involved in getting started. Okay, so I mentioned workshops that will run to help you with all of this, so let's take a closer look at these. There are really three components. First of all, what are you interested in? For example, you may well have taken a major in chemistry because you love it, but maybe you haven't ever really thought about what jobs there are that involve chemistry and who employs chemistry graduates. Besides, what kind of chemist might you want to be? Do you want to be at the lab bench or in some other role? These workshops will help you tackle these questions and give you some tips on securing a host organisation for your placement. You can also drop into the Career Centre for advice. Check the Come and See Us link from their webpage for times and locations. Before any of that though, the very first thing I'd urge you to do is to think outside the square. A science and technology background can take you into such a wide range of careers. As a graduate with a major in chemistry, you may well be interested in teaching or science communication. What careers really appeal to you? Do you want a complete change of direction? Only by thinking about these things will you get a sense of the kind of work you might want to do during your placement. To give you a few ideas, here are some examples of tasks previous interns have undertaken during their placements. Some interns have been field-based, monitoring pollution levels in catchments or undertaking controlled burns as part of environmental programs. Others have been on site with engineering firms, in IT startup companies, based in research laboratories isolating DNA, or undertaking literature reviews, statistical analyses, or market research. There really is no right answer to the question, what kind of work can I undertake as part of my placement? The possibilities are really endless. Now I keep mentioning the website that includes this expression of interest form as well as the application and risk assessment form. So let's take a look at where this is and what other resources are available to help you with all of this. So you need to navigate to the Faculty of Science website and click through to the Students page. Scroll down to the Enrich Your Studies link and then to the internship subjects. This will take you to a list and you simply need to click on the link you need. There are separate pages for the 300 and 900 level subjects, but they're very similar, so let's click on the link for the undergraduate subject, Sci 30002. I'll let you explore this website in your own time, but you can see there are links to information for students, information for hosts, step-by-step instructions if you forget anything, and frequently asked questions. Further down the page is the link to the expression of interest form. You need to fill this out if you want us to be aware of your interest and help you with this subject. Below the shaded box are a range of resources to help you if you can't manage to attend any of the workshops. In the shaded box is the link to the online application and risk assessment form. There will be dates and deadlines listed here, so check this often and ensure you're planning well in advance, normally early in the semester before the one in which you want to carry out this subject. This page will also advertise the timing and location of workshops and provide links for you to register your attendance. Many of these workshops are booked out very quickly, so registration is essential. Now, one information sheet available on that website that I'd like to draw your attention to is the one called Information for Hosts. This can be downloaded as a PDF, and I recommend that you do this and read it carefully. When you're speaking to a potential host organisation, they may well ask you questions about insurance, payment, the kind of work you need to do, and so on. If you've read this sheet, you can answer all of these questions with confidence. You might even like to email this information sheet to them. Well, I suspect that's probably quite enough to get your head around for now, but before I end, I thought it might be useful to cover off some of the most common questions we receive. So here are a few. Question 1. Can I take this subject if I'm an international student? Well, this is an easy one. The answer is yes, you can. This is the case whether you're here enrolled for your entire degree or here for a shorter time on study abroad or exchange. As you would be enrolled in this subject as part of your course, some of the visa restrictions you may normally face regarding your work will no longer apply. Question 2. Can I take this subject overseas or interstate? Yes, this is possible. We've had students in both categories, in fact. There are a few additional challenges, but these can normally be overcome in most cases. Can I enrol in this subject and gain credit for work that I've already undertaken or that I'm currently doing? No, in this case we really can't, because this subject has a series of modules that prepare you before you enter your organisation for the first time. There are also observations that you need to make, an assessment you need to complete during your placement, so if you've already completed your work, this won't be possible. If your work is ongoing, it's really unclear what new insights you gain by simply doing more of the same. The aim of this subject is to have you explore something new. Question 4. Can I undertake my placement at some other crazy non-standard semester time? Well, we need to really assess exactly what's meant by this. With all of the hurdle requirement class materials online, you need to be enrolled in the subject before you can complete them, and hence before you can commence your placement. So this means you'll be limited by when the LMS can be made available. That said, students have begun a week or two before the start of semester this year, but only because I've managed to get the LMS site built and released early enough, and that may not always be possible, so you'd need to check with us. Question 5. Can I receive payment? Now, if your host organisation insists on paying you, and some organisations do have policies around this, we'll need to use a different legal agreement. So again, it's not impossible, and please don't panic and decline the offer of a placement if you find out they want to pay you. We'll aim to be flexible and make as many opportunities work for you guys as we can. So we'll try and work around this. And a last question. I can't fit this into my permitted load. Can I take it via CAP or the Community Access Program? And the answer is simple. Yes, you can. Well, these are a few of the questions we receive, and as I mentioned before, there's a list of frequently asked questions on the internship subject webpage that we looked at before. So please refer to it if you have any other queries. It's highly likely that the same question has been asked and answered before, but obviously contact us if you do have something that hasn't been addressed. So as one final comment, I'd just like to share an important point made by 2 or 3 students that have taken this subject over the last few years. That is, don't be too quick to accept the first placement offered to you. So these students accepted internships that weren't really what they were looking for, and they took them mainly because they were worried that they may not find anything else. Of course, in the end, their experience was not nearly as valuable or rewarding as the experiences that other students in the class had. After all, they went into it knowing from the outset that this was unlikely to be a career they really wanted to pursue. So take your time, really think about what you want to do, and use the many resources available to you. If you plan ahead, this can literally be a life-changing opportunity.